We open on Chris Johnson, a man sitting in a diner looking as lonely as a vegan at a steakhouse. He's obsessively checking his watch because apparently he has a very important date with absolutely nothing. He stares at the door, expecting a grand entrance, but since the universe doesn't care about his dramatic timing, he just gets up and leaves. Chris lives in Las Vegas, the city of broken dreams, where he performs a bargain bin magic act under the stage name Frank Cadillac. Honestly, if you're going to pick a fake name, maybe don't pick one that sounds like a used car salesman from the 70s. He hits the stage and starts doing prediction tricks that are about as exciting as watching paint dry. The audience is giving him the "we could have stayed home and watched Netflix" stare. To save his ego, he drags a young woman on stage and predicts the exact millisecond her necklace will fall into her drink. Splash. It happens. The audience claps, blissfully unaware that they aren't watching a magician, but a guy with a cosmic cheat code. Plot twist. 2 FBI agents are lurking in the back, and they aren't there for the card tricks. You see, Chris isn't just lucky. He can see 2 minutes into his own future. It's a pretty pathetic superpower if you think about it. He can't stop global warming, but he'll definitely know if he's about to stub his toe. Since the Cadillac brand isn't exactly raking in the dough, he spends his time at casinos making tiny, pathetic bets. He's trying to fly under the radar, but he's doing it with all the subtlety of a neon sign. The casino's head of security, Roybal, a man whose name is as unfortunate as his job, is watching the CCTV like a hawk. He's convinced Chris is cheating, even though he isn't counting cards. That 2-bit magic act, Frank Cadillac, he knows what's coming, Roy grumbles. He's offended that Chris isn't betting more. It's a valid question. If you can see the future, why are you still living in a place that probably smells like stale cigarettes and regret? Roy sends his goons in, but Chris, having already seen the "you're busted" highlight reel in his head, heads for the exit. He stops at the cashier to cash out his meager winnings and gets a 120-second trailer of a robbery. He sees a guy pull a gun, kill 2 people, and make off with the cash. Being a hero, Chris lunges at the guy before the gun even clears the holster. Naturally, because the universe hates him, the security guards arrive, see Chris holding the gun, and conclude, "Yep, that's our guy." Realizing that "I saw it in a vision, officer" isn't a great legal defense, Chris bolts. A high-speed chase ensues through Vegas. He approaches a train crossing and sees a future where he ends up as a Chris-flavored pancake if he slows down. He floors it, clears the tracks by a hair, and leaves the cops behind to ponder their life choices. Meanwhile, FBI agent Callie Ferris is showing the casino footage to her boss. She's convinced Chris is a psychic powerhouse, while her boss is more concerned about, a stolen nuclear weapon that European terrorists plan to set off in LA. Small stakes, really. Callie insists that the magic man is the key to stopping the nuke. Her boss, clearly tired of her X-Files theories, gives her 5 days to prove it. Callie tracks down Roybal, who confirms that Chris looked right at the camera exactly when Roy decided to arrest him. "He doesn't have to be there to do it," Callie whispers, sounding way too impressed by a guy who calls himself Frank Cadillac. She then proceeds to have all the casino tapes destroyed because, in the world of the FBI, evidence is just a suggestion. Her team figures out Chris's limit, 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Anything longer than a YouTube ad, and he's blind. Chris, meanwhile, is hiding out with his friend Irv. Irv scolds him for stealing cars, which is fair, but Chris is more obsessed with a mystery woman he sees in his long-range visions. He visits a diner twice a day, every day at 8:09, hoping she'll show up. Irv points out the obvious. Did you see a calendar? Because she could be 10 years older, or, not interested. Chris doesn't care. He thinks she's the one because she's the only person who extends his psychic range. Romantic? Or just efficient? Suddenly Chris freezes. "Undercover cop coming," he warns. Irv tells him to run, but Chris wants to stay and see what she wants. Callie walks in, talks about the nuke, and tries to play on his patriotism. Chris basically says, "Pass." He knows the government will just turn him into a lab rat. Callie tries to blackmail him with the casino footage and the stolen car, threatening him with Folsom State Prison. Cris hits back with a sob story about observed play therapy from his childhood. Just as the FBI storms the building, Cris rewinds time. Turns out, he was just previewing the conversation. "You're right, I gotta go," he tells Irv, and vanishes out the back door before Callie can even say national security. While Callie is busy missing her target by seconds, the actual terrorists are busy shooting Roybal in the kneecap. Turns out, they're looking for Cris too. Talk about being popular for all the wrong reasons. The next day, Cris is back at the diner, staring at his watch like a man who has nowhere else to be. And then it happens. Liz walks in, the woman from the visions. Cris starts running simulations in his head like a creepy dating app. Scenario A. Got a light? I don't smoke. Fail. Scenario B. Ask about the coffee beans. Ask the waitress. Double fail. He's failing at basic conversation in multiple timelines until Liz's aggressive ex-boyfriend Kendall shows up. Kendall starts getting handsy and Cris finally finds a scenario that works. He steps in, dodges Kendall's punches with the grace of a man who knows exactly where they're landing, and makes the guy pay for Liz's breakfast. But wait, Liz isn't impressed. She thinks he's just another aggressive jerk. Time resets again. This time, Cris intentionally lets Kendall punch him in the face. It's pathetic. It's manipulative. And, of course, it works. Liz feels sorry for him and offers him a ride to Flagstaff. As they drive, Cris starts talking about destiny, and Liz, the only sane person in this script, tells him she doesn't believe in it. While Cris is busy using his face to lure Liz into a road trip, Callie and Cavanaugh are playing detective back at the diner. They figure out Chris's 8:09 a.m. obsession, which honestly the FBI should have flagged as stalker behaviour months ago. They hear he's headed to Flagstaff and decide to pull traffic cam footage. Meanwhile, Cavanaugh drops the news that Roybal has been found with a slit throat and a shattered kneecap. Callie finally realises that the terrorists are also looking for Cris. You'd think the world-class terrorists would have better things to do than hunt a magician. But here we are. Cris and Liz arrive at an Indian settlement near the Grand Canyon. Liz works there as a part-time teacher because apparently she wasn't saintly enough already. Cris decides he wants to meet a shaman, maybe to ask why his life is a C-list action movie, but he settles for doing card tricks for toddlers. The kids, who have better intuition than the FBI, immediately ask if Cris is her boyfriend because he won't stop staring at her. Liz looks up, sees him pining like a lost puppy, and is actually impressed. On the road again, Cris explains his Frank Cadillac origin story. It's inspired by Frankenstein and Cadillacs. Groundbreaking, deep, truly, the peak of 2007 screenwriting. Rain starts pouring, Liz falls asleep on his shoulder, and they inevitably hit a road blockage. The universe is practically screaming, "Go to a motel," so they head to the Cliffhanger Motel. Subtlety is dead. It's buried under the Grand Canyon. Back at the FBI, we witness the greatest cinematic sin of the early 2000s, the magic zoom. Callie and Cavanaugh are looking at low-res traffic footage. Zoom in, enhance, rotate, remove occupant, frisk pants vector. At this point, I'm surprised they didn't ask the computer to identify the brand of his underwear. They find a permit number and track it to the motel. While Cris is being a gentleman by sleeping in the car at the motel, which Liz only notices because she's staring out the window like a Victorian widow, the terrorists are at a port unloading a nuke. Their leader is apparently a fan of the Bond villain school of management. One of his goons complains that they're wasting time looking for a magician who sees the future. The leader basically says, "I don't care if it's magic or a really good guess, kill him." In DC, Director Wisdom, who clearly isn't living up to his name, is throwing a tantrum because nobody knows where the nuke is. Callie struts in and demands all the resources to kidnap Cris Johnson, convinced he's the human metal detector they need. Little do they know, the terrorists have a spy watching Callie's office from across the street. They've murdered the tenant and are just hanging out, waiting for the FBI to lead them straight to our favourite magician. Great job, feds. 10-10 security. Back at the motel, Liz steps out of the bathroom in a towel, and Cris is suddenly an expert on Italian painters. He quotes some art history, turns a piece of paper into a rose, and they finally kiss. It's all very destiny, until Callie arrives in a helicopter to ruin the mood. Instead of just knocking on the door, the FBI intercepts Liz. They show her the casino footage and tell her Cris is a dangerous sociopath. Their plan? Give Liz a bottle of pills and tell her to drug his drink. Wait exactly 2 minutes after he leaves the room, they tell her, because apparently the FBI thinks 2 minutes is the universal constant for psychic cooling periods. Liz goes back in, looking about as guilty as a cat in a yarn factory. She tries to act normal, but Cris senses the "I'm about to poison you" vibe. He tells her to take a shower while she prepares breakfast. As soon as the bathroom door shuts, it's a race against the clock. Liz is checking her watch, Callie is checking hers in the van, and a terrorist sniper is checking his scope from the bushes. It's a real watch party. At the 120-second mark, Liz drops the pill in. But because she has a heart of gold, and because the script needs her to, she breaks down and confesses everything. Cris turns up the TV volume to max, so the FBI bugs only hear static, and he starts his favourite party trick, predicting the TV dialogue. "You can't get lost in the woods if you never go into the woods," he recites perfectly. Liz is stunned. He finally explains the 2-minute rule, but drops the bombshell. With her, he can see forever. He gives her $10,000 in cash. Where did he get that? Small bets my eye. And tells her to set her watch 7 minutes ahead. He has a plan involving a water tower and some very specific timing. He kisses her goodbye and walks out to face the music. Outside, Callie realizes something is wrong because Cris is staring directly at her binoculars. He jumps down a slope and the chaos begins. Liz follows his instructions and crashes the car into a water tower, sending logs and equipment tumbling down the hill like a deadly game of Donkey Kong. Cris dodges sniper bullets and rolling debris with his 2-minute cheat code, while the FBI agents are getting flattened by timber. He makes it to the bottom, where Callie is waiting with her gun. "You're not going to shoot," he says, because he knows a giant log is about to turn her into a smudge. He has a choice. Let the lady who tried to drug and kidnap him die, or save her. He chooses the hero route, pulls her to safety, and is immediately rewarded by being tackled and arrested. "No good deed goes unpunished," he mutters. Meanwhile, the terrorist leader Smith decides to kidnap Liz to use as bait, because if you can't beat the psychic, kidnap his girlfriend. Classic. Let's bring this home. We've reached the part where the FBI's brilliant plan involves medical-grade torture and Cris finally realizing that his 2-minute window is about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. Here is the final block, the eyelid clamp special and the nuclear oopsie. We move from a romantic mountain getaway to the FBI's version of a spa day. Cris is strapped to a chair with his eyelids clamped open like he's auditioning for A Clockwork Orange. Callie's grand strategy. "Hey, look at all these TV screens and tell us where the nuke is." She's banking on him seeing a future news report, which is honestly a pretty lazy way to do intelligence work. Cris, staring into the abyss without a single blink, sees a vision from 2 hours ahead. Spoiler alert, it's not a weather report. He sees Liz strapped to an explosive-laden wheelchair on a parking garage roof. The bomb squad approaches, the terrorists get bored, and boom, Liz becomes confetti. Cris snaps back to reality in a cold sweat. Instead of helping, he does what any rational psychic would do. He beats the hell out of the guards, uses his foresight to dodge their clumsy punches, and stages a one-man prison break while the building goes into lockdown. He sprints to the parking garage from his vision. Callie, who apparently can't hit a stationary target but can run a marathon in tactical gear, corners him. Cris finally spills the beans. Liz dies here in 2 hours. Suddenly, the FBI is interested in a deal. The plan is for Cris to walk out into the open like a human target so the sniper reveals himself. Cris fakes being hit, a performance that would definitely win him an Oscar in a timeline where he isn't a fugitive, and the FBI finally manages to take out one guy. Progress. But Cris realizes that in every version of the future, Liz still ends up dead. He reads a license plate off a van in a future that hasn't happened yet. The FBI is definitely not paying him enough for this, and they track the terrorist to a port. Now, the movie turns into a first-person shooter. Cris leads the tactical team, shouting directions like a backseat driver from hell. Sniper at 6 o'clock, catwalk, second level. It's basically a video game on easy mode. They reach a massive oil tanker, where the terrorists have planted motion-sensitive mines. Cris points them out like he's marking hazards on a golf course. He sees himself getting shot, says nope, and guides the team around the corner instead. They find the leader, Smith, who is using Liz as a human shield. Smith's gun clicks empty because Cris waited for him to run out of bullets, and Callie finally earns her paycheck by shooting the detonator out of Smith's hand before putting a bullet in his head. Liz is saved, the vest is off, everyone is high-fiving, but wait. Cris looks at a seismograph. He gets that I left the stove on look on his face. He realizes the whole Save Liz mission was a giant distraction. The actual nuke was somewhere else. The screen goes white. A shockwave vaporizes Los Angeles. Millions of people die, and the movie ends on a total downer. Wait, just kidding. Time snaps back to the motel. Turns out the entire last 40 minutes of the movie was just one big 2-minute vision because Cris was touching Liz. He's still in bed. The nuke hasn't gone off yet, and he's realized that the only way to save the world is to stop being a selfish prick. He calls Callie himself, makes a deal to help if they leave Liz out of it, and gives her one final, "I'll find you in a week or a month" kiss. He gets into the FBI car, and we fade to black on a cliffhanger that we all know never got a sequel.